meeting minutes. No introduction, so we'll just jump right into old business, starting with the COVID-19 closure and reopening.
All right. Notable is opening of Arts West, which we will be opening on January 4th with limited hours and by reservation only. The hours will be 2 to 6 p.m. Tuesday through Friday. And looking as we move into spring, possibly programming Saturday hours. I don't have a reopening status for the senior center. I spoke with Joyce this morning, and we will touch base again in early January.
Terry, back to Arts West real quick. Will that include the lending library?
Yes, I was going to hold off on the programming piece and give that in my report. I can report out on it now if you'd like, if it makes the most sense. With opening Arts West January 4th, the musical lending library will open. Crafternoons, Tuesday through Friday program will open. We'll start January 11th and run through March 3rd. That'll be held with a cap of 9 participants in person and the possibility of 5 virtual spots.
Afternoons is a really great name.
I thought so too. Let's see. Other programs will be For the Love of Athens. Gallery installation will happen in February, right around Valentine's Day, which is quite appropriate. With the idea to shift that to the community center in April. I'll go into a little more about that. And then the possibility of a Valentine Day plant and print sale. We held one 2 weekends in December, and that went very well. Rented the space. We don't know what February is going to hold as far as COVID numbers. In speaking with Emily this earlier today, they haven't really confirmed that they're going to hold that in February. They're kind of in a holding pattern, so to speak. That's all as far as openings. No closure, happy to say. And of course, we are gearing up for, at least it's on our radar, opening the aquatics facility. And I'll get into more of that, staffing, and what we see that looks like in my staff report.
Good, thank you. Next items are board responsibilities and assessment. And I'll maybe tackle the assessment piece first. I have compiled all of the responses. I got Terry and Alan's incorporated now. I think it has some good information, some good feedback, and I think it needs to be looked at, reviewed, and discussed by the board in the new year when maybe there's new members on board as well. But I think there are some clear things in there and some that we've already talked about that are improvements that we can make just in the functioning of the board and the onboarding of members, as well as kind of the annual progress that we're able to make. So at this point, though, I think it's either if there's a board member that wants to take on that assessment and kind of keep that conversation moving forward, feel free to speak up. Otherwise, maybe just handing that over to Terry and whoever the new chair would be to lead that conversation into the future. So are there any comments or interests from board members in taking that assessment piece?
And Mark, go ahead.
Well, I was just wondering if, was there any common themes, most of us said this or that or anything? You said there was some things that stuck out, but I didn't know if there's anything I don't know,
to be honest,
surprising or just something interesting, or even just hey, I thought that was a great thing that came out of I really like this or whatever.
Yeah, I didn't see anything too surprising. And a lot of them, I think, are ones that we've already talked about, the structure, the onboarding of new members, and some of our organization. I think there is conversation around our board meetings and kind of how we're spending that time, what could be done maybe in advance or in writing versus what we discuss and work through as a board in these meetings. So I'll share it with everybody. I'll send the compiled list so everybody can see and kind of go through and kind of make their own judgments from it too. But I think it's interesting just from our different perspectives. There's a couple things I think that were, some people thought it was fine, and others that were, had some comments of we should really work on this, or this is an area that we need to focus on. So as a baseline, I think for setting some targets moving forward, I think it's a good start at least.
Cool, thanks.
So Mark, as I mentioned in my email, I'm willing to take that piece and work with the new chair on that and get as much in place as I can. I know it was our goal to have that in place in January, and I'd like to shoot for that, especially with the new board members coming on. So if you can circulate it to the board, we're going to task you as much as we can through January 6th, and then I'll take it from there.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll send it out after our meeting here today. The other part is the responsibilities document. I used track changes, so you'll see what I changed and what I moved, but I incorporated some of Alan's suggestions. I do think there's some of the actual board charges that probably still need discussed on whether those changes should be made. I think the biggest thing right now, though, and I just very informally threw some language in there. I think we can have some discussion on it now about selection of a board chair and what that process looks like, how we go about it. So I'm just going to throw out what I put in there and maybe a starting point for folks to react to and get feedback on it. My suggestion, or what I put in here, was that the chair would serve 1-year terms on calendar years. So it would go from January 1 to December 31st. That we would seek nominations prior to our annual board retreat around November. And then we could have a vote during our retreat or the nearest or the next closest board meeting. So ending the year, we would know who the board chair would be for the following year and kind of have a bit of a transition at that point. And then if the chair becomes open at some point during the year, we can kind of do a similar process. But that was literally the basics of what I put on. Obviously, I think there's some details that probably need to be, some questions that need to be answered around the process itself. But I wanted to put that out and just get people's reactions and thoughts on selecting a board chair, because kind of need to do it. Yes, Beth?
I agree that having the new chair named prior to the beginning of the new year makes all the sense in the world. I think that's a really good goal. My first reaction when you mentioned the possibility of having the person selected at the retreat is that there might be some other member who's very unhappy during the entire retreat, if two people want the job. So that would be my reason for suggesting that the decision be made at some other opportunity. Okay. But I like everything else you said.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
Can you do it at the end of the retreat, maybe? Leave angry.
It would be much better to leave angry than be angry for the whole retreat. Yes.
Mark, that structure is very consistent with many school boards, where the person who's chaired the school board serves for 1 year. One of the things I like about your suggestion is that over a period of time, it develops leadership. As opposed to someone who sits in the office for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years. This way it kind of passes the responsibility and the opportunity for growth around. So I think that's a great suggestion. And getting it on a calendar year. I think what this also does, and I may be jumping the gun here, but I think it when we have vacancies, it kind of pushes the envelope on the necessity of filling vacancies, as quickly as possible. I'm not sacrificing quality for bodies, but we're going to have 2 coming up here, and it would make sense, I think, to bring them both on at the same time to address something you mentioned earlier, and that's the onboarding process. Rather than having to go through that twice, maybe in a period of 2 or 3 months, we could do it once and get both of those people on the same page at the same time. But I like your suggestions. I think that's well thought out and something that we could make work very easily and very quickly.
Is the idea like you can only do 1 year, then you're off and you come back, or you're voted on each year? Is that what you're thinking? Or
I'm thinking you could be voted on each year. Yeah, you can get consecutively as long as the board votes and is supportive of that going on. Yeah.
Is there? I always wonder about when someone comes into a spot, like if it's best, because every seasons are different. Is that the strongest you think for a new chair, or is there some? I think of like Brew Week. It's like a bad idea for like the director to come in at the new year. It's usually we were like, if I were to leave, we'd be looking at, my tenure leaving like August or something like that, because then that person get ready for a summer thing. So I just didn't know what people's feelings are. I feel like January, December makes the most sense, but I just didn't know if there's a more opportune time, for bringing that person in. So it's not like, something you might be saddled with whatever's going on versus maybe you're at the start of that next year, so. Yeah.
I think that's a fair point, Brandon. I think, definitely seasonality would be crucial for what you do with your festivals for sure. And it could very well be relevant for this as well. I wonder, I can see both pros and cons to having the term be 1 year, even if it can be renewed. I respect what you said, Alan, about like kind of leadership not getting stale, but I also wonder if it could be tricky for a chair if someone wanted to propose something that would take more than a calendar year to complete, or maybe the person would have a great idea in October for something that would happen in the spring, but wouldn't know, if the president would, if the chair would be continuing. But I don't know if that would mean it would be good to have a 2-year term, or if that would just have to be a one potential drawback of the position. I don't have a strong opinion on it.
Well, in terms of the term, I think the calendar year makes sense. The city operates on a fiscal year, January 1 to December 31st, both in personnel and budget. So I think it makes sense for us to align with that. And in terms of the other, if we have open and honest communication, I see no problem with the transition. But that's a key point. And I think when Mark shares the data that he's compiled, I think we'll all see that the communication is an area that many of us identified as one that we need to work on as a group, as do most organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Would there be value in just thinking about this now? If we continue with this annual retreat, would there be value in having the new chair selected prior to that retreat? Do you think differently? I'm thinking of if I was in that spot, some of my thinking and planning may come across differently if I know I'm going to be chairing the next year and responsible for some of the things that are coming out of that.
I think that's a really good point. I suppose one possibility might be to decide on the new chair before the retreat, but not have that person's term officially start until the beginning of January. So that for however many months there in the fall, there'd be the current chair and the upcoming chair, and maybe those two people could work together, and perhaps that would ease the transition.
Yeah, I like that.
We do that in October, and then you have your chair-elect. Unless we have to do a recount.
I didn't even get into all the eyes and
I think it's a great idea. Yeah, do it in October. Chair-elect, they go into that meeting fully prepared to work with the current chair to make the transition as smooth as possible.
If I may interject, something to keep in mind or to consider is that administrations change at the beginning of the calendar year. and to have someone, begin their tenure at the beginning of a calendar year makes sense, because it's not inconceivable that a newly elected mayor may choose to go in a different direction with their staff within any department, which can always shake things up a little bit. So just keep that in mind. And that holds true for city council members as well, that city council and electeds period can be changing, but those changes will take place at the beginning of each new year. Just a thought.
Okay, so I'm hearing support for 1-year terms, having them essentially elected in October prior to the November retreat, them having a bit of a chair-elect overlap with the current one starting January 1st. Okay. In terms of our current situation, how would we like that to be handled? Is that something in asking for nominations and addressing this in January? I don't necessarily think it's the right thing to do to ask for that and try to vote on it now. So I can open the floor there for that conversation too, of how we address the immediate need.
I think the fact that we had to reschedule tonight's meeting and we're not a full contingent, January would make sense. And I think we need to let people know that that's going to be an agenda item, so that people can make an extra effort to have this meeting be a priority on their calendar, so we can have full attendance that night.
Mm-hmm.
Then would you want to have all of the discussion and the voting happen in the January meeting, or would you prefer to have some of that process take place via email? I don't know. This is my first year on this committee. I don't know how you've done this in the past.
Mark, how were you elected?
I was just kind of next in line and the most senior person that was willing to take it on.
Everybody else?
Since I've been on this board, there has not been a formal process in terms of standing for it or nomination, any of that type of thing. It's
I don't mean to put the mayor on the spot, but I'll ask the question. We will be meeting on the 21st of January. That is the third Thursday of the month. And again, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Do you foresee that we could have the two vacant positions, the current position and Mark's when he expires on the 6th of January, filled at that time, so that we would have a full complement of 7 board members on the 21st of January?
So, Mr. Swank, you're not putting me on the spot. I will likely bring forward 2 candidates Monday night to City Council, and if I don't Monday night, then it will be the first order of business at the new year, because the new calendar year starts off with a regular session to where I can get on the agenda, whatever that January meeting would be, but it would be definitely before the advisory board's next meeting in January.
Thank you. So to Beth's point, I'm thinking that we have the discussion on the 21st. I think it'd be very difficult to do it via email with 2 new board members that may not have met any of us or us them. And you know what? If we have 3 candidates that run and 1 wins and the other 2 don't, I think we're all committed to this committee. That that's fine. And this one, this isn't a political office. 2, we're not going to retire on the check that we receive for doing this. And 3, I think we're all united in a common cause to do what's best for arts, parks, and recreation for the city of Athens. I mean, we've all won things and we've all struck out in the 7th inning, so I think we can deal with it.
Yeah, I think I would say that if we can have at least the candidates, so those standing for it, identified ahead of time, I think that would be helpful for that meeting.
I absolutely agree with that. And maybe each candidate could provide some sort of written statement that people could review and give a presentation during the meeting or something. I don't know. Assuming there would be more than one.
Yeah, I was thinking kind of that written statement idea as well, just submitting something that people can review and have as a platform for any questions or anything.
Could I just ask that we don't turn it into a candidate forum, please?
That's up to you all.
I agree with that totally.
And Mark, can I just ask that that's your last order of business before January 6th?
Is what?
Coordinating that?
It's requesting nominations.
Requesting nominations, collecting the statements?
Sure. When does my term officially end? January 6th, is that what you're saying? Yes, I think I can.
Unless the mayor extends it until the 21st.
That's okay. I'll get it done by the 6th.
Have you served 3 terms?
Yeah, I've been on since 2014. Yeah. Yes, I will. Okay, I will take care of kind of coordinating and getting something out to request those nominations, and you can nominate yourself or others, and then that'll be the slate for the January meeting.
And for those that are not in attendance, you'll make sure that they're included and aware of the process. Okay, thank you.
All right. Moving on, board retreat. Tara, you said you'd handle this one.
Yeah, there were some scheduling conflicts. I think at the end of our last meeting, we recognized that we may not be able to stream and include staff. That was part of the conversation. And then realizing that our government channel would be challenged to support a 4-hour retreat. And Mark and I had exchanged emails, and I think recognizing that I may not be in attendance because I had surgery on the 10th, I was hopeful that, I'd be able to bounce back by the 19th, but literally to sit for that long, it would not have been, I don't know what, how that would have been. So he and I exchanged emails, and then Mark sent out the email that we would postpone it. I don't think we really hashed through in our last meeting what we wanted on the agenda. So, it was canceled or postponed. We can move forward and reschedule that the early part of the year, or as discussed this evening, go ahead and put that in place for October or November. And I'll go with the board's recommendation. I want to personally apologize for the confusion and for the scheduling mishap. It's 2020. What can I say? So, but I would like to say that I like the idea of the retreat with this board. We initiated that in 2019. I think some of the comments were that the board did enjoy being able to engage and interact and work with staff at the retreat. So that's something to think about too, as we move forward is do we want to include APR staff, or is it, do we want to go with a board retreat? So that can be part of the conversation as well. But yeah, that's all I have on that.
One thought when we get these 2 board members and have a full complement is to maybe in the late winter, early spring, to have a mini retreat rather than a full-blown 4-hour deal like we had last year. Just a little 2-hour deal where several things happen, one of which is bringing the new people on board and up to speed as best we can. and then addressing priorities that we identify in a prior meeting. I think waiting clear till November of next year to reconvene, what I think has been a very good exercise, we might lose some opportunities. But a short mini retreat, late winter, early spring of a couple hours, something to think about.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea in general. Kind of a mid-year progress update, and especially your point, bringing on new board members too, it might be an opportunity to give them some added value and understanding a little bit more in depth at that point. But I like that, even to consider moving forward, that you have kind of the retreat in the fall and maybe one in the spring as well. Maybe they're not quite as long as what our initial one was.
I like that idea, Alan. I think it would be nice to do that and go somewhere. When I first came on, we had a meeting at the pool, and that was very interesting. I learned a lot, and there's other places in the city that we could go and see that we might not even realize the value. So I like that idea.
Great idea.
Yeah, I think there's stuff from our last retreat which we haven't touched. And I really think, like, I don't know how we tackle some of it, but yeah, I think not doing a full retreat, definitely wait until the fall, but like somehow incorporating some of that stuff. Maybe we can look at that document again and see, like, I know we had drafted a new or a possible mission statement, but we all kind of pitched in on that, and I don't think we were able to implement that, because it's 2020, but like, there was discussion on that and just revisiting, but guidelines and stuff like that will govern us for the rest of this year. Like getting a new chair is gonna be great, but like, when are we going to dive into our principles, I guess, what we're doing and everything like that? Because we can have a retreat in the fall, but if we haven't figured out what we're doing, it's like we're going to do the same thing. And I don't think we're headed that way. But I think having something intentional, like if it's that mini retreat like that Alan talked about, I think maybe figure that out soon so we can maybe put it on for February or March, because time will get away from us very quickly, and we'll be talking about baseball and everything like that for summer, and that'll take a lot of our time. So if we get that in there soon, I think that'd be important to do.
I think those are good points, Brandon. Just to echo what Daniel said, I think that it would be possible to have a safe, socially distanced outdoor visit somewhere if we wanted to maybe go to the driving range that may or may not become soccer fields, or, there'd be many possibilities. And it would just be so nice to do something in person. So, yeah, I like the idea of a visit.
Right. We'll move on to board member vacancies.
I think the mayor touched on that with Alan's question. Mayor, I don't know if you want to speak to that anymore. Is everybody good with what's been decided and determined and his commitment?
Well, let me add to that a little bit, Terry. I know that this board has been looking at the Rec Advisory Board's structure, your charter, basically, which is a city ordinance. It was codified by city council. And when it comes to establishment of the committee, the board, there's language in there that I think is somewhat antiquated. I think it makes sense for when this board was established, but I don't know that it makes a whole lot of sense anymore. In particular, it says all members of the committee, which it's not a committee, it's a board, but regardless, shall be electors, which if you look at that language unto itself, they have to be a registered to vote. I don't know what that means 100%. Is that you're registered to vote on, in the city, in the county, I mean, in the city, you'd be one and the same. You'd vote on county issues and whatnot. It also speaks to the fact that an individual or two members may reside outside the corporate limits, but within Athens Township. I would just request that the board revisit that language. We have a number of individuals who do pay taxes in the city of Athens, yet they do not live in Athens Township nor in the city. Do you want, is that the way to move forward? Keep it that restrictive, because that is restrictive. Does the electors mean, again, that you have to be a registered individual in Athens City / Township? Just something, food for thought, because that language, I think, was likely put in place when the community center was fairly new, and figuring out how things were going to roll forward. So just something I would request that this board take a hard look at to see how restrictive you want the board to become, or how loose you want things to be when it comes to board appointments. I find myself with my hands tied sometimes with that language, although there's great candidates who individuals who would like to serve. And this piece of legislation, because it is within the code, within city code 3.07.42, I don't have a lot of leeway.
I would be, if the board wants to take that on, I would be happy to help with that process.
Well, I was about to ask, Mr. Mayor, if the board decided to make, to discuss this and make a recommendation, the chain of command would be through Beth to city council?
It would. I would certainly like, since you're advisory to me, I would like you to advise me on that as well.
Okay.
Because I believe that I could certainly champion this for this board as well, depending on your thoughts on this. I would like to certainly, like I said, I'd like to be advised on what's going forward. And yes, ultimately it would go through Councilmember Clodfelter and up to council. Yeah.
Okay.
So just, yeah. So I respectfully ask the board to take a deep dive into that, and really kind of think through it. Think through the process. I'm looking at the amendments, the changes in here from the most recent version where there's some markups. So good. It's always good to review. It's a dynamic document.
I actually ask a question on part B of that. We have vacancies on a committee occurring otherwise than by expiration of term shall be filled for the unexpired term and appointed in the same manner as the original appointments. Have we been functioning like that? I feel like we've been appointing members at various points based on their vacancy, but have we been keeping a consistent term where they're filling the expired portion of the term and then starting over, or is it just starting whenever they start?
I know mine started and ended 2 years from the point of appointment. And that's why everything's so out there. And that's why a meeting or two ago, Mark, I mentioned about getting these things on some kind of a calendar. But if we follow the letter of the law and get back to that on subsequent mayoral appointments, I think we can clean that up very quickly.
Yeah, and I think it would help with our orientation efforts as well. Okay.
Presumably those people who would come on while filling the end of an unexpired term would have the possibility of being reappointed for a full term if all was going well. But yeah, I think it would make it cleaner.
Okay. On to new business. Alan's got a couple things on here. First, the budget committee.
Well, I see that Travis has joined us. Mark, do you want to tell Travis all of the committee heads he's been appointed to while he's interviewing a prospective OU student, or should I? Travis, did you make the snail? Is the young person going to be joining us here?
I think I did. It was a lot of talking. So
Good. On the budget thing, back there, if you remember during our October, and I've got some notes here, so you have to excuse me. Back during our October meeting, I shared with the group some figures related to revenue and expenses at Arts West for the last 3 years. After that meeting, I began to delve into the benefits that we extend to people who choose to become a member of Arts West, a vital membership campaign that we have. And what I found was that in many cases, the value of the benefits of membership turned out to be far greater than the revenue than those memberships generated. Since we've had some little programming at Arts West in the last 9 months, and probably won't until there's a vaccine and people are comfortable coming inside again. And we also had a pool season that we didn't have this year. It just seems like this is a logical time to take a look at all of our fees across the board and all of our programs and operations. That would just be one of the many things that a budget committee, a subcommittee of this board would look into. So I guess I would throw it over to Terry and ask for her comments on that, and if there are any other areas that you would foresee, if this board deemed it appropriate, with your blessing, that a budget committee might look at.
Thanks, Alan. So yeah, as far as fee assessment, you've heard me reference cost recovery and what that might look like for our department. I think we need to look at that across the board for all of our user fees. That's membership, day passes. We did that 2 years ago. And we did increase some fees here at the community center. We've not done it at Arts West. If we consider our parks, our shelters, our field use, we don't charge for field use as well. That's a direction that I think we need to review or need to go, and things that we need to review. It's a new day. As far as operations, and while there are programs that I think we're going to need to determine that we will subsidize or just have cost recovery on direct costs, not indirect costs. There are fees and that that we can increase across the board, and those are our rental fees, and taking a look at those for-profit, nonprofit, and other types of user groups that have traditionally used our facility. Another group is county city employees. We offer that as a benefit to city employees. I haven't had that conversation with the mayor or Chief Pyle, but we have had it loosely about what the arrangement with county employees has been. So yes, to taking a critical look at how we're doing business is what I hear, and what I feel we need to do across the board. Arts West, Community Center, our park shelters, and our athletic fields. Now's a good time to do that. I think that's something that we need to have in place moving forward when we consider our agreement with Sandlot. So yes, I'm open to the board reviewing and advising in that capacity with regard to budget.
At the end of the day, my ultimate goal would be to make our facilities, all of our facilities, as accessible to as many people as possible, regardless of their socioeconomic status or any other category. We have to be reasonable. We have to be affordable. But to give an example, my daughter has a pass to the city pool, if the family goes to the pool 7 times, starting with the 8th time, and we're talking Memorial Day to Labor Day, when they go the 8th time and each subsequent time, it's free. 7 visits pay for an entire summer. Now, I'm not saying that we should necessarily jack pool prices up through the sky, but as Terry said, I think we need to take a look at these things. And also, and this is where Terry and her staff become very valuable to us, they talk to their peers all the time. What are other people doing? Well, what are the going rates? Are we consistent not only for Southeast Ohio, but other areas that are college towns, which makes us a little bit different than a lot of Southeastern Ohio. So I hope in the new year, that's one of the things we can look at, how we might form such a committee if the rest of the board feels it's appropriate, so that we are bringing in the money. I shudder what April 30th is going to look like when we truly know what the income tax revenue for 2020 is. We're hoping. I know Kathy Heck has all 10 fingers and all 10 toes crossed that it's not as bad as some municipalities are forecasting, but it could be. So this seems like the perfect time, as Terry said, to take a look at all of those things.
You know, and another thing I think that we need to consider is passing on cleaning fees. Those costs have increased with the frequency that we are and will be cleaning the facilities. Those are fees that can be passed on with rental registrations and rentals and other events that we hold at the community center once we get back, in a position where we can have people in the building and rent the facility for larger events. Me and my staff are looking at the cost recovery models. We're going to go program by program. And with that, we may have programs where our cost recovery is just our direct cost. And then there may be activities or programs or rental where we want to capture that indirect cost, what it costs us to clean, what it costs us administratively, are there administrative fees, what it costs us to turn the lights on. I have a report due to the mayor and Chief Pyle breaking down those direct and indirect costs weekly and monthly that they'll have next week. So we're taking a deeper dive on our end. I think this aligns, but I do want to say that we're going to have to get creative in how we subsidize those that may not be able to afford certain programs. Is it through scholarship? Is it through grants? Is it through sponsorship? Is it through donations? I'm having those conversations with my staff because I think that social equity piece is so important.
I think my question comes into is what do you want the role of the board to be in relation to that? Because I'm hearing the formation of a budget committee, but I also know you've talked about doing that work as a department and kind of looking at those things. So where do those two things intersect, or what would be the role of the board as it relates to that process?
So my thought as far as a committee, I'll say in an advisory role, the cost recovery pieces is me working with staff, looking at each program, then bringing those things forward to the board to help us determine what that price point is for different user groups, if that makes sense. Yep.
I just want to make sure that got.
And we'll have it categorized, as far as youth programs, adult programs, rentals. We'll have it broken down in that way, and then have the board review that and look at our current fee structure. Staff will bring forward what other agencies are doing. That's difficult sometimes because of demographics, because of just the structure, socioeconomic structure of other areas to find something that's comparable. But we can make sure to note what those differences might be as we move through the process.
And Alan, do you have thoughts on what this committee looks like?
Yeah, I think we have to make sure that what we do is legal in terms of the number of people that we conform to all, meeting laws and regulations. But as Terry just said, as they formulate these things, I think rather than necessarily bouncing it off the entire board once a month at a meeting like this, that the committee representing the board could look at that and give feedback. Mm-hmm. I think it would streamline our meetings, these monthly meetings. I would hope that if we did something like this, there would be at least a couple members, maybe 3. I don't know what we can legally do. We certainly have to ask, Law Director Eliason what's appropriate for that. But then we'd have at least 2 or 3 people who, 1, have an interest in this, and 2, perhaps some expertise. I know Brandon runs big festivals, and coming in on a budget is a big part of that. He may, I don't want to put you on the spot, but he may or may not be interested in it. On the other hand, somebody else, maybe one of the 2 new people are. So that would be the role I would see the committee doing, much like council does. The council has 4 committees, and those people specialize. They do research between meetings. They meet with the appropriate city officials to get the background, and then they bring forth a report or a recommendation to the full council. And again, this committee, and the key word here, we advise, we recommend. We are not legislative by any means, and don't pretend to be. But I would want to know from the law director or someone from council what that committee, how large that committee could be to make it legal but still functional.
Good.
And I think the timing is right, that you bring that forward, and that, we're working through what we're working through our end, because there are going to be conversations about budget as we move into 2021, and what that looks like and how we're doing business. So to have the board support and the expertise and be advised, I think will go a long way.
Good on that. An update on Friends of APR, Alan.
Okay, if you remember, I don't know, sometime within the last year, 18 months, we started talking about a Friends of Arts, Parks, and Recreation. And Terry charged Brandon and Shauna with that task, and they've done some work on that. As that was going on, another group, Friends of Sells Park, primarily made up of some interested individuals in the Far East Side Neighborhood Association, came forward as, perhaps we have a Friends of Sells Park group. And as a group, this committee, we talked about this in several meetings, and the consensus we kind of came up with was perhaps we just need one Friends group, an umbrella group, rather than possible multiple Friends groups associated with Arts, Parks, and Recreation who might, be in competition for scarce funds. Also, as an umbrella group, it might be easier to apply for grants and financial support and all of that rather than this group, that group. In fact, many high school booster groups have actually gone to this model rather than having a booster group for each specific sport. So I have a couple of questions. One, if we can get an update, I don't know if Brandon has it, Terry has it, on where the Friends of thing is. But the second question is, it revolves around something I saw the other day on the government channel, and this is a proposed Friends of Arts West group, which is a little different than any Friends group I've ever seen before. And, how that dovetails with what was kind of a consensus in this group to have one umbrella group, Friends group for Arts, Parks, and Recreation. So, Terry, maybe an update and anything else anybody can provide on the arts, the other one I'm speaking of.
So as far as the Friends of Arts, Parks, and Recreation, Shauna and Brandon and I had, I believe, one, maybe two in-person meetings, and then there was an exchange of emails. I think they got to Shauna, her last email presented, some of the costs associated with establishing the Friends of group. I reached out to Leanna from the auditor's office to determine if those funds could be paid by the city and then reimbursed once the Friends group was established. That was nixed. We couldn't do that. It was my intent to come up with Plan B and how we might appropriate those funds to establish, to get, pay the incorporation fees actually to get established. And my thought was through sponsorship or whatever. And then I want to say 2 or 3 meetings ago, Shauna's report was that we table this since we're in COVID, and she really hadn't had time, or she and Brandon hadn't been able to connect and really hadn't had time to move forward with that. Alan, I think I talked to you about the Friends of Sells Park. My concern with having a number of Friends of groups is that those have to be managed. And if we have a Friends of Sells Park, West State Street Park, Arts Parks and Recreation, Friends of Arts West. And then I think at council meeting, council member Smedley requested that I consider Friends of Arts West, and knowing that it would be more challenging to manage. So, with that, I'm open to that. The mayor and I have discussed it loosely. I'm open to that. But what concerns me is that, that we have a Friends of Sells Park. Maybe we have Friends of Parks, Recreation, Friends of Arts. I don't know what the answer is. I do know that I attended the AMAC meeting last week, I believe, their December meeting, and it was proposed that there's an ad hoc committee working together to bring a proposal forward for Friends of Arts West. That's, and as I understand, will be brought forward in January to the AMAC committee. So I'm open. I want to do whatever best serves the community. And, it's my responsibility, to ensure that it serves our department, whether that's arts, parks, and recreation, and how that shakes down. I think that's open for conversation, but, I'll work to make it work, I guess.
I get that that it could be challenging to manage multiple groups, but I wonder if there might be some kind of in-between way to allow people to really focus on what they care about. If there are a group of people who are ready to put their hearts and sweat and time into helping Sells Park, I wouldn't want to dampen their enthusiasm. I wonder if there could be maybe an umbrella group called Friends of the Athens Parks or something. And then, I don't know, maybe this is overcomplicating it, but maybe there'd be a way to sort of have a subcommittee that was Friends of Sells Park and Friends of West Side Park and Friends of Highland Park or whatever, if there were people passionate about helping those. But if right now, if there are people on the Far East Side who really want to invest time and maybe money into helping Sells Park, I truly would hate to dampen their enthusiasm.
Yeah, that was kind of the idea, Beth, that there would be these umbrella Friends of Arts, Parks, and Recreation and subgroups underneath of that. Kind of like, at OU, you can give money to athletics, but you can stipulate to a specific program. For example, years ago, we supported the volleyball program. It went to OU athletics, but it went to volleyball. The umbrella was Ohio University athletics, but the sub part was volleyball. In this case, the umbrella is Arts, Parks, and Recreation, and then subgroups within that. That's kind of, and I may be mistaken. Please, if I'm taking something away from our previous discussions that's not correct, I apologize. But that's kind of what I took away from it, is how this might be structured.
I know the mayor, I see his note in the chat too. He's got to leave at 5:30. Any other, I appreciate the note in the chat, by the way. Any other comments before you need to duck out? Muted.
I know I'm muted. Of course I am. No, other than Mark, I want to tell you personally, I truly want to thank you for all the work that you have done. You and I served together when I was a council member on this board. You've been a great and strong leader with Arts, Parks, and Rec Advisory Board. And for that, I appreciate all the effort that you have put in. You've shown exemplary leadership on this because it is so multi-dimensional. Because it is the city's arts and culture, it's the city's recreation, and it's the 750 acres of parklands that is the city of Athens, or that the city of Athens owns and operates. So from me to you, thank you. I can't thank you enough. And the rest of the board, I know the hard work that you guys have put in. You have been outstanding as well, especially during, I can't even say unprecedented anymore. That becomes so cliche. Just this difficult year to get through. We've seen events that we cherish throughout the year that the council, authorizes street closures, some of it recreational, things like the Brick Criterium, which just started up in 2019, and unfortunately had to cease and desist this year, to the Athens Arts and Music Festival. You name it. It's been hard. It's been difficult. Just period. There's nothing else to say. And to Beth Clodfelder for serving. Thank you for serving on this board as the city council member, representative, and Terry Moore. Again, everything that I just listed that makes up Arts, Parks, and Recreation. You've done a fantastic job in just some of the most unthinkable times. Things will change in 2021. I do want everyone to be cognizant of, as we roll into 2021, granted, we have a vaccine that is currently here in Athens, and it's working its way through the various phases of administration. But I share that in that I implore everyone, not all of you, but everyone who's watching, continue to do the right thing with wearing face coverings, with social distancing, with washing your hands often. I know that Terry Moore, Director Moore, runs a very tight ship with the community center when it comes to cleansing and making sure that's a safe environment. I say all this in that I have no ill-conceived notion that all of a sudden we're going to be able to take off our masks come March, come May, come realistically July or August. I'm a realist. It's going to take us some time. So I want this board to kind of keep that in mind as you're doing planning moving forward, that we're not out of the woods by any stretch of the imagination. And I really need for you to assist Director Moore in how we kind of navigate through this as we look forward to 2021. My New Year's resolution is to, one, be able to hug people again, and number two, to make sure that we continue to be as safe as we possibly can be as a community. I look at the numbers of counties around us, and we're doing something right. I know we've seen an increase in numbers in the past couple weeks, but if you look more recently, those numbers are going down somewhat. I don't want to say significantly because I jinx myself when I say those things, But I look at other counties around us, and they are doing, they're much more challenged than we are in terms of their numbers and what things are looking like. So I just want us to continue to do the right thing. Encourage people to continue to use our outdoor spaces, because that's what Arts, Parks, and Recreation is all about. The safest thing that you can do is take advantage of our bike path, take advantage of our city parks, our hiking trails. Oh, and did I forget the Bailey Trail System? But that's all I have. Mark, you're awesome.
Thank you.
I encourage you, after you get your 1 year respite from being on the board, to please consider coming back again, or if nothing else, coming back on one of my other 20 plus boards or commissions for the city.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Mayor.
All righty. Anything else in the Friends of APR? Did we wrap that up?
No, I think that's good. Unless anybody else has anything to chime in, we can maybe take a look at it in January in terms of redoing this. I'm in the midst of helping a group of people raise a whole bunch of money for a health and wellness complex in my alma mater. And we are finding right now that people are very receptive to listening and very receptive to opening their pocketbooks. So I don't think we can just ignore this totally, take advantage of the opportunities for a good program. But I do appreciate what Brandon and Sean have done so far, and hopefully we come back in January, we can get back on this and get it organized in whatever form we deem most appropriate.
Yeah, I was just going to share. I mean, it's, what Terry said is definitely true. We were moving forward. We were trying to figure out who's going to pay for it. We're looking at different, friends of in different counties. I think like Lancaster had some of theirs. So there's a lot of information there. But then I think, then there was the Friends of Sells Park, and then there was that discussion and it being 2020. So, yeah, I mean, I've been part of the Friends of Arts West, and we've not been charged with anything. We're just doing the same thing the Friends, I'm sure, of Parks and Sells Park doing. We're getting everything together, and then we're going to see what happens. It hasn't been said, hey, this is happening. Same thing. It's a group of people interested in arts, but also equity, that we're putting that together. And hopefully, we'll see what happens, but, because at the end of the day, it has to work for the city. If Terry, is going to be over all these, if there's no management to it, I definitely understand what you're saying, Terry. Like, you're like, hey, I'm in charge of Sells Park and I'm in charge of all the arts, but like, if there's something built in there, that helps it make it easier, and that's kind of what we've got. We've been meeting weekly to kind of figure some things out, and a lot of the stuff we're working from exists. If you want to know more, watch the AMAC meeting. That Chelsea reported out to that. That was from last week of some of the work that's been done, but yeah, that hasn't been presented yet. Just because we're getting together in this COVID time. So. But I think when we talk about having umbrella stuff, I'm usually against that, because I'll just give my example of being on the crew team and people, you can give to OU. I don't think this is much for varsity, but my parents gave every single year when they called, and we never got a check. It might have gone to campus recreation, but we never got a check for the crew team. And that's always, and this isn't Mark's, it's poor Mark's time. So don't put it on him. But yeah, this is back in 02, 98, 92, but like they would call and say, oh, you can earmark it to anywhere. And it never got there, and it's funny now, but like, we needed that money. And I always think about that experience when you have a large organization is supposed to go here or there. And if it works well, it's great. But if it doesn't, people who are giving money for the arts or parks or recreation, they want their money to go there. But if it's being split across, that shouldn't happen. When you have them separated, it can't happen because you have the fund lines are different, but I'm excited to see the discussions. At least we're talking about this as something, because I remember, a year ago this time, we were like, can we even do a nonprofit to solve, the women in sports day and stuff like that, solve some of the problems that Terry was saying with, we have money, we got a grant this year, but we can't use it until next year, like we have the money, but we can't touch it, and so alleviating that, because, next year is going to be very important for us to just really, make sure we're spending our money right. Because, I do feel better now to share this as far as, like the mayor said, as far as like people coming out. You probably saw that Nelson Music Fest has not announced their headliners. Same thing with Brew Week, and we're in July and June. So just keep that in mind as far as like where with the vaccine, people think, oh, we'll be out in March or April. Like most large things are and do you want to be outside with, I don't know, half the people vaccinated and half the people not, and what does that look like? So it's not just going to be like we're safe in July. But anyway, that's my update on the Arts, Friends of Arts West. Watch that AMAC meeting. There's some information there. And then in July, it'll be more formulated. So.
Bart, very quick question. Does anybody know what kind of money we're talking about to form an art Friends of organization? We talking 500? We talking 5,000? We talking 50?
No. It under 1,000. The filing fee is around 5 or 550 or something. It's a low number, but that has to come from somewhere. So Sean and I were just two people. We're like, I'm not going to put that forward. But it's not. But it's much to actually set it up is very easy. It's everything that guides what's going to happen. You can go make an Allen Swank nonprofit 501c3. But then also you have to apply for your nonprofit status with the IRS, which is a whole nother thing. So to get tax deductible thing. So it's not increasingly hard. You really just need to have 2 board members, that serve on there, and bylaws and everything like that. But, that's why we're having this discussion, because, you want to make sure you have a good one before you accept a connection with the city. Because, I'm sure, Alan, your group is great, but like what happens if it folds and stuff like that? Do you have those plans? And I'm sure you have them, but other people have come forward like, we'll just do this forever. And then it folds, but really, it's not a cost prohibitive thing to do. It's really getting the energy and the plan so it can sustain is the hard part. So even with when we're doing Friends of APR, I mean, it's just, we were looking at Lancaster's and it doesn't even hit a lot of stuff because it doesn't correlate. They have different areas, a lot of horse riding and stuff that we don't have. And how does that, connect? So.
Great. Well, that's good information to have. I had no idea what the cost would be.
Yeah. And I only know from Brew Week, because we have a 501c3 and so I've been in that, but it's not a hugely cost prohibitive for an organization. For an individual. Yeah. That we were like, I'm not putting that on my credit card, like it's COVID, so.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks.
My understanding, we've got to 5:45, I think, because other streaming commitments. And so our last item on the agenda now is the staff report. So, Terry, I think if you want to give a
Sure, thanks.
brief update.
I should be able to get through this pretty quickly. We've talked about Arts West and the opening and the programs that will be happening there. As far as personnel, the facility operations manager position will be filled starting January 18th. That person's going to hit the ground running, learning everything about facilities and especially the pool facility. They'll be required to get their certified pool operator certification. That will happen in January, early February, as well as Red Cross certifications. Other new certifications in the department, 2 arborist certifications, Kevin Skurlock and Rich Welsh, both in the maintenance department. We're working with Ann Bonner on that. I'm studying for my CPRE exam with NRPA. I'll likely sit for that test in March. Program
What does that stand for? Sorry, Terry. The acronym.
Certified Parks and Recreation Executive. I have the CPRP, professional, but I'm going to sit for the executive. Let's see, recreation. On the recreation side, we've got youth basketball. We are not having a league with teams. We are going to do a dribble, pass, and shoot competition for a 5-week challenge for all age groups. It's a new format. That was recommended. It was recommended that we don't have teams by the health department. Really kind of discouraged that. Start Smart Basketball start in January. We've got dance here at the community center. Little Royals Ballet and Hip Hop. Both of those, all the sessions have been full. We're getting great feedback on that. We have our adult boot camp in the mornings. That's going well. Preschool will start in January at a date to be determined. We're still working through getting a preschool teacher hired for that. We've got the person selected, but we've got to get them through the hiring process. Projects, just to update on the fiber project, and that's with to connect Arts West as well as other infrastructure throughout the city. The preliminary work that's been done there, electrical upgrades, relocating servers and other equipment like phones and Ethernet, and we're installing new access points throughout that building. David Dudding's heading that project, but it's moving forward nicely. Maintenance projects, the bike path bridge repair, that's to be completed by January 1st. We've got some loose boards, loose screws, and EPW managed to donate the lumber. We thought we were going to be out of our budget with it, but Jessica Adine has donated the lumber from, got the contractor to donate the lumber that was left over from that from the initial project. Camp Protand trail repair. We've evaluated the safety and repair. The mayor's been out there. He looked, we've grinded and cut rebar and hammered it in. The next phase is to remove all the rotten wood and stakes along the trail, the wooden steps, railroad ties. Then phase 2 is to replace that, gravel and tamp that down. We're doing both of those projects in-house. Maintenance operations manager Kevin, he wanted to take those on as winter projects. Alan, just miscellaneous, the Sales Park Storybook Trail kiosk, that's on my radar to address that. We've got the wrong type of material and that's being inserted. So it's not weather resistant. We've looked at that, and I'll be getting with Nick on that. How'd I do? Time is here. And with that, Mark, thanks so much for your commitment and all you've done. We're going to miss you. And yeah, I really appreciate it. Good work.
Thank you all. I've enjoyed being a part of this group and getting to know you and work with you. So wish you all the best and moving forward and accomplishing all the things that I started to talk about.
You've been a great chair, Mark. Thanks so much for your contributions, and enjoy having one more free evening a month.
Thank you.
Now, you heard what the mayor said. You've got 365 days and he's coming to look for you.
I'll focus on those 365 for now. Thanks, everybody. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right.